Admiral Torque of the Galactic Federation adjusted his sensory appendages as he stared at the holographic projection of the blue-green planet. He had seen thousands of worlds in his centuries of service, but this one made his skin ripple with concern. "The data can't be correct," he muttered to Science Officer Len. "No sentient species could evolve in these conditions." Len's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as she reviewed the readings. "The data is verified, Admiral. Solar radiation levels that would cause cancer in most species. Atmospheric oxygen concentrations high enough to be combustible. Gravity 2.3 times our standard. Extreme temperature variations. Apex predators in every biome. And the microbes." She shuddered. "The microbes alone would decimate most Federation populations. And yet there they are," Torque said, zooming in on clusters of lights visible on the night side of the planet. "A technological civilization. They call themselves humans, and their planet Earth." "Recommendation for classification?" Len asked, her digits hovering over the input panel. "Class 12 Deathworld," Torque said without hesitation. "Maximum quarantine protocols. No contact. No visitation. No remediation efforts." Len's appendages trembled slightly. "That would make it only the 3rd Class 12 in recorded history, Admiral." "I'm aware," Torque said grimly. "The first 2 no longer exist. One was destroyed by its own unstable geology, the other, well, we don't discuss what happened on Vorex IV. The humans have achieved atomic capabilities," Len noted. "They're on the cusp of basic space exploration." "All the more reason to keep our distance," Torque replied. "Species that evolve on Deathworlds develop differently. Their problem-solving always defaults to aggression. Their social structures revolve around dominance. It's the evolutionary price of surviving such hostile environments." The ship's sensors chimed, indicating they had been in orbit too long. Maintaining stealth required movement. "Set the classification and let's move on," Torque ordered. "The odds of their survival are minimal anyway. Most Deathworld species self-terminate once they develop weapons that match their inherent aggression." "Classification set," Len confirmed. "Earth. Class 12 Deathworld. Humans. Extremely hazardous biological entities." As their ship accelerated away from the blue planet, a final note was added to the official record. Projected extinction timeline. 200 planetary cycles. Cause: self-annihilation. The joke was classifying Earth as a Deathworld, an impossibly hostile environment where only the most vicious species could evolve. But the universe always had a dark sense of humor. Half a millennium later, Federation monitor probes registered something they had been programmed to consider impossible: electromagnetic signals consistent with advanced technology, emanating from Earth. Not only had humans survived past their projected extinction date, they had thrived. First Officer Wren, granddaughter of Science Officer Len, presented the findings to the current Federation Council with palpable concern. "They've expanded throughout their solar system," she reported. "Mining operations on their moon and neighboring planets. Habitation rings around their world. And most concerning, they've detected our monitoring probes." "Have they destroyed them?" asked counselors. "No," Wren replied, her expression betraying her confusion. "They sent a message." The chamber fell silent as the translated text appeared on the central display. "We know you're watching. We're ready to talk when you are." The punchline was beginning to take shape. The Federation delegation ship Diplomatic Overture dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, precisely where the humans had requested. Admiral Jor, great-grandson of Admiral Torque, commanded the mission with a mixture of scientific curiosity and ancestral dread. "Status report," he ordered as the ship's systems stabilized after transit. "All systems nominal," replied Navigator Brell. "We are being scanned. Sir, the energy signatures are unlike anything in our database." Jor felt his appendages stiffen with instinctive fear. This was why he had volunteered, to confront the genetic memory that made his species tremble at the thought of Deathworlders. "Open communications on the frequency they provided," he commanded. Almost immediately, a voice came through, translated by their systems into standard galactic. "Federation vessel, this is Earth Control. Welcome to the Sol system. Please maintain your position. An escort is approaching your location." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. First contact protocols dictated that the visiting civilization should initiate all movements to prevent misunderstandings. "Earth Control, this is Admiral Jor of the Federation. We acknowledge your greeting but request that." "Incoming," shouted the sensor operator. "Object approaching at." "That can't be right." Before Jor could ask for clarification, a sleek vessel materialized alongside them, seemingly having crossed the vast distance in seconds. "Federation vessel," came the voice again. "This is Captain Tom of the Earth Ship Handshake. Sorry for the surprise. Our fold space technology runs a bit differently than your hyperdrives." Jor struggled to maintain composure. Fold space technology. The Federation had theorized it, but never achieved it. "Captain Tom, we come in peace to establish formal relations between our civilizations." A chuckle came through the comm. "We've been waiting 500 years for you to say that, Admiral. Permission to come aboard? Or would you prefer to visit our vessel? We've adjusted the environment to match your species requirements." Jor felt a chill. How did they note his species requirements? The monitoring probes weren't equipped with that level of detail. "We will receive you aboard our vessel," Jor decided. "Better to control the variables." 20 minutes later, the Federation delegation waited nervously in the reception bay. The airlock cycled, and Captain Tom stepped through. A bipedal being with only 2 arms and eyes, covered in a sleek environmental suit. "Admiral Jor," the human said, extending the gloved appendage. "The handshake is an Earth greeting custom. You take my hand in yours as a sign of peaceful intentions." Hesitantly, Jor wrapped his 3-fingered hand around the human's. "Welcome aboard, Captain." "Thank you for finally answering our calls," Tom said, his translated voice carrying what Jor's cultural database identified as amusement. "We were beginning to think the Federation was ignoring us on purpose." Jor's skin rippled with embarrassment. "Not ignoring. We underestimated your species' survival probability." Tom removed his helmet, revealing a face with far more expressions than most Federation species possessed. "Yes, we know about our classification. Your probes weren't as stealthy as you thought. We've been studying you for centuries." The punchline grew clearer. Humans hadn't just survived their death world. They had mastered it, then reached beyond. The diplomatic reception aboard the Diplomatic Overture continued as Captain Tom led a small delegation of humans through a presentation about Earth's history since the Federation's last observation. Admiral Jor and his staff watched with increasing discomfort. "After we nearly destroyed ourselves in the nuclear age," Tom explained, showing holographic images of devastating weapons, "we reached what we call the transition point. Faced with our own extinction, we chose cooperation over conflict." Science Officer Mira leaned forward. "You rewrote your genetic tendencies toward aggression." Captain Tom laughed, a sound that made several Federation members flinch. "No, Officer Mira. We channeled them. Humans are still the same biological entities that evolved on our death world. We simply found better applications for our survival traits." The presentation shifted to images of massive environmental restoration projects, terraforming of Mars, and asteroid mining operations that dwarfed anything the Federation had achieved. "Your Federation classified Earth as a death world," continued Lisa, another human diplomat. "But we came to see it differently, as a training ground. Every challenge that should have killed us made us more adaptable instead." Admiral Jor studied the humans carefully. Their biology still triggered his instinctive fear response. Everything about them, from their dense musculature to their efficient respiratory systems, evolved for survival in conditions other species would find lethal. "You said you've been studying us," Jor noted cautiously. How? Captain Tom nodded to a technician, who activated a small device. Suddenly, a new hologram appeared, a complete map of Federation space, including classified military installations, colony worlds, and resource caches. Jor's appendages went rigid with shock. This is impossible. This is highly secured information. Your cybersecurity evolved in a cooperative environment, Lisa explained gently. Ours developed under constant attack, from each other, initially, then from our own AI systems once we created them. We had to become better, faster. Are you threatening us? Asked Security Chief Farn, his hand hovering near his weapon. Captain Tom's expression softened. Quite the opposite, Chief Farn. We're extending an offer of alliance. The Federation isn't the only interstellar community in this galaxy, as you well know. The statement hung in the air. The Federation did indeed know of other powers. Aggressive, expansionist empires on the far side of the galaxy that had thus far shown no interest in Federation space. How could you possibly know about the Frex Dominion? Whispered Jor. Because they found us first, Tom said gravely. 50 years ago, they made the same mistake you did, assuming that because we evolved on a Deathworld, we would be primitive, aggressive, and easily conquered. The human tapped his communication device, and a new hologram appeared, the wreckage of massive warships floating in the void of space. They sent what they considered a small exploratory force, 3 dreadnoughts, 5 carrier ships, approximately 40,000 troops. Tom's voice had lost all its earlier humor. It was the only time they made contact with us. We've been monitoring their communications since. They classified Sol as a forbidden zone afterward. The Federation delegation stood in stunned silence. The punchline was becoming unavoidable. The joke wasn't just that humanity had survived their Deathworld. It was that their Deathworld had prepared them for the universe in ways the Federation couldn't comprehend. 1 month after first contact, a Federation scientific delegation arrived at Jupiter's orbit, where humans had established what they called the Ganymede Research Collective. Admiral Jor had returned to Federation space, but Science Officer Mira led the mission, her curiosity overcoming her species' instinctive caution around Deathworlders. What exactly do you research here? Mira asked as Dr. Ryan, the human lead scientist, guided them through massive laboratory complexes built into Ganymede's subsurface. This is our Environmental Adaptation Center, Ryan explained. Here we develop technologies to survive in environments humans weren't designed for. They passed chambers where humans worked in what the Federation recognized as lethal conditions, crushing pressures, radiation levels that would kill most species instantly, temperature extremes that should render biological function impossible. How are they surviving in there? Asked Assistant Dre, Mira's colleague. Some are using environmental suits, Ryan said. Others have opted for temporary biological modifications. The ones in Chamber 12 are testing our new genetic adaptations. Mira stopped walking. You're modifying your own genetics, but the risk of species divergence is carefully managed, Ryan finished. We remain human, just more adaptable versions of human. They continued to a large observation deck overlooking an enormous spherical chamber. Inside, humans moved freely in what appeared to be open vacuum. This isn't possible, Dre whispered. No biological entity can survive vacuum exposure for more than seconds. Ryan smiled. Conventional biology? No, but we stopped accepting conventional limitations centuries ago. Those researchers have modified pulmonary systems that recycle oxygen internally for up to 6 hours. Their skin includes radiation shielding layers and thermal regulation. You've become a different species, Mira said, her scientific mind racing with implications. No, Ryan corrected gently. We've become what we always were, just more so. Earth forced us to adapt or die countless times through our evolution. We're simply continuing that tradition, but consciously directing it now. The tour continued to a massive hangar where vessels of various designs were being constructed. Our exploration fleet, Ryan explained. We're preparing to venture beyond our local star cluster. Mira examined the ships with her scanning equipment. These vessels, they don't appear to have life support systems. They don't need them, Ryan confirmed. The crews are adapted to space itself. The ships are simply propulsion, navigation, and research platforms. Dre's appendages trembled. You're creating humans who live in space, without protection. We prefer space-adapted humans. But yes, Ryan said, the first generation can only survive in space for weeks at a time before needing to return to normal conditions. The next generation will likely manage months. Mira struggled to process what she was witnessing. The Federation approached hostile environments by building better shields and isolation systems. Humans adapted themselves to the environment instead. Dr. Ryan, she finally asked, what do your people want from the Federation? Ryan's expression grew serious. The same thing all humans have always wanted, Officer Mira. To survive. To explore. To understand. The Federation has knowledge spanning thousands of worlds. We offer our adaptability in exchange for your experience. The punchline was evolving. Humanity hadn't merely survived their death world. They'd internalized its lessons and were remaking themselves to conquer any environment the universe could throw at them. 6 months into official Federation-Earth relations, the diplomatic exchange had expanded to include military cooperation. Colonel Jake of Earth's Unified Defense Force found himself aboard the Federation battlecruiser Resolute Defender, observing their combat drills with Commander Grell. Impressive response time, Jake noted as Federation troops deployed from their quarters to battle stations in under 3 minutes. Commander Grell's chest swelled with pride. The fastest in the Federation fleet. Our crew can maintain full combat readiness for up to 12 hours without degradation. Jake nodded politely, though he'd seen human forces maintain combat readiness for days. Earth's military evolution had been driven by necessity. When your opponents could strike from any direction, readiness became second nature. We've prepared a joint exercise scenario. Grell continued, leading Jake to the tactical center. A simulation of coordinated response to a Vrex incursion. Jake reviewed the scenario parameters with interest. The Federation's understanding of Vrex tactics was theoretical, based on limited intelligence gathering. Humanity's knowledge came from direct, if brief, combat experience. May I suggest a modification? Jake asked, inputting new parameters into the simulation. The Vrex don't use this attack pattern. They prefer asymmetrical approaches, targeting civilian infrastructure first to divide defensive responses. Commander Grell studied the revised scenario with concern. That would violate multiple interstellar conventions on warfare. The Vrex never signed those conventions, Jake replied simply. And Deathworld species tend to prioritize effectiveness over formality. The simulation began, with Federation tactical officers facing a much more chaotic scenario than they had trained for. Within minutes, their defensive formation had fragmented, trying to protect too many targets simultaneously. Simulation failure, announced the computer. Defensive forces overrun. Civilian casualties at 78%. Commander Grell's skin paled. This cannot be accurate. Our defensive doctrine has been developed over centuries. Against conventional opponents, Jake noted, the Vrex evolved on a world almost as challenging as Earth. They understand that survival sometimes requires uncomfortable decisions. Jake reset the simulation, this time uploading human tactical responses. The Federation officers watched in disbelief as the simulated human forces immediately sacrificed certain civilian targets, creating defensive strongholds that gradually expanded control rather than trying to defend everything at once. Simulation complete. Defensive victory. Civilian casualties at 32%. You allowed a third of the civilian population to die, Grell said, clearly disturbed. We saved 2/3, Jake corrected. In a war with the Vrex, that's success. This is what evolution on a death world teaches you. Sometimes survival requires terrible choices. Later that day, Jake met with Admiral Penn of Earth's fleet via secure communication. "How are our Federation friends responding?" Penn asked. Jake sighed. "They're still processing what we showed them. Their combat doctrine assumes a certain level of ethical behavior from their opponents. They've never faced an enemy that evolved with the same survival pressures we did. And their technology? Advanced in some areas, surprisingly underdeveloped in others. They've had peace too long, Admiral. They build beautiful ships with incredible scientific capabilities, but their weapons are primarily defensive. They haven't had to innovate offensively for generations." Admiral Penn nodded solemnly. "Keep working with them, Colonel. The Vrex scout fleet we destroyed wasn't their main force. Intelligence suggests they're rebuilding, adapting to what they learned from that encounter. When they return, the Federation will need to be ready." The punchline was becoming clearer still. Humanity's struggle on their Deathworld hadn't just made them survivors. It had made them the shield that a more peaceful galaxy might soon desperately need. The Federation Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from 47 member species gathered in emergency session, facing a delegation of humans standing calmly at the center of the room. Federation President Orla spoke first, her normally melodious voice tense. "General Mark, your intelligence report has been distressing to many council members. Can you confirm its accuracy?" General Mark nodded, his weathered face solemn. "Our deep space monitoring network detected the Vrex fleet 3 days ago. 217 warships, on direct course for Federation space. At their current velocity, they will reach the Turisian system in approximately 2 weeks." Councillor Jem of the Turisian people rose immediately, his bioluminescent skin flashing with distress. 2 million civilians live in that system. Our defenses can handle minor piracy, not an invasion fleet. "Which is why we're here," Mark replied. "Earth's combined fleet stands ready to help." Federation High Admiral Lex scoffed visibly. "With respect, General, while your species has proven remarkably adaptable, the Federation fleet consists of over 400 vessels. Yet you seem concerned about a force half that size." Mark locked eyes with the Admiral. "Yes, because while you have more ships, they built theirs for war. Every Vrex is raised to fight from birth. Every system on their vessels serves one purpose: conquest." "Like humans," muttered a counselor from the back, though the chamber's acoustics carried the words clearly. Instead of taking offense, Mark nodded. "Precisely. We recognize the Vrex because in many ways, they mirror what humanity might have become without our transition. Deathworld species that don't learn to channel their survival instincts often become exactly what the Federation fears." He activated a holographic display showing a detailed battle plan. "We propose a joint operation. Federation forces will protect civilian populations and infrastructure, while Earth's fleet engages the Vrex directly." High Admiral Lex studied the plan. "You're suggesting we hide behind your ships. The Federation has defended this galaxy for 10,000 years. Against threats you could outthink or outmaneuver," countered Admiral Kate, another human delegate. "The Vrex don't want diplomatic solutions or resource negotiations. They want conquest because in their evolutionary history, it was conquer or be conquered. We understand that mindset better than you can." The chamber erupted in argument until President Orla raised her hands for silence. "What assurance do we have," she asked carefully, "that after helping us against the Vrex, humanity won't become a similar threat? Your capabilities already exceed many of our defensive measures." General Mark looked around the chamber, at the faces of species that had evolved in environments where cooperation outweighed competition, where survival didn't require constant vigilance against threats. "Because we made a choice," he said simply. "Earth taught us to survive at any cost. But we learned we could choose what cost we were willing to pay. We could have become the Vrex, conquering instead of cooperating. Every day, we choose differently." He pointed to the holographic display showing the approaching fleet. "But make no mistake, we remember how to fight. And against the Vrex, that's what's needed now." After hours of debate, the Council voted. The Federation would stand with humanity against the coming storm. As the human delegation departed, President Orla pulled General Mark aside. "Your people speak of this transition that changed humanity's path. What exactly was it?" Mark's expression softened. "The moment we realized the joke, Madam President." "What joke?" "That the universe called Earth a death world to warn others about us. But what it really did was forge us into exactly what the galaxy would one day need." The punchline was nearing its final form. Humanity had not just survived their death world. They had transformed its lessons into a shield for those who had never faced such challenges. The battle over Teresian Prime raged for 6 days. The Vrex fleet, bold and ruthless after centuries of uncontested expansion on the galaxy's far side, had expected another easy conquest against the philosophically minded Federation. They hadn't expected humans. From the observation deck of the Federation diplomatic vessel, Peaceful Witness, Federation representatives watched in awe and horror as humanity's fleet engaged the Vrex in combat, unlike anything recorded in Federation history. "They're not fighting like a military," whispered Ambassador Vol as human vessels deliberately took devastating hits to lure Vrex ships into tactical traps. "They're fighting like an immune system." Next to her, Science Officer Mira nodded. "That's precisely what they're doing. On Earth, their bodies had to develop aggressive immune responses to survive the microscopic threats of their world. They've applied the same principle to warfare. Sacrifice is acceptable if it eliminates the greater threat." When the battle finally ended, 38 human ships had been destroyed, along with 179 Vrex vessels. The remainder fled back toward their territory, a retreat unprecedented in known Vrex history. 3 months later, representatives from Earth, the Federation, and most surprisingly, the Vrex Dominion gathered on neutral territory, a space station orbiting a lifeless star on the borders of all 3 territories. Vrex Commander Koth, his scaled skin bearing the ceremonial scars of 100 conquests, faced General Mark across the negotiation table. "You fight like us," Koth said, his translator conveying the mix of respect and confusion in his voice. "Yet you protect the soft species of the Federation instead of conquering them. Why?" Mark considered the question carefully. "Because our death world taught us that survival takes many forms. Sometimes it means fighting. Sometimes it means building. The strongest position isn't always conquest. Sometimes it's alliance." Koth's vertical pupils narrowed. "The Federation species could never survive on our worlds." "They don't need to," Mark replied. "That's what we discovered. Different evolutionary paths create different strengths. The Federation's diplomatic and scientific expertise complements our adaptability and resilience." The negotiations proceeded for weeks, resulting in an unprecedented treaty. The Vrex would halt their expansion toward Federation space. In exchange, they would receive technological assistance from the Federation and Earth to address the environmental collapse occurring on their homeworld, the driving force behind their conquest. As the Vrex delegation departed, Federation President Orla approached General Mark. "You knew, didn't you, that their aggression came from desperation?" Mark nodded. "Deathworld species recognize each other's patterns. Their world is dying faster than ours did. They chose conquest as their solution. We're offering them an alternative." "Will it work?" she asked. "Unknown," Mark admitted. "But this is how the galaxy changes, one choice at a time." 1 year later, the Federation formally reclassified Earth. No longer a Class 12 death world, it was designated a Class C Crucible world, a term created specifically for Earth, defining it as a planet whose harsh conditions created a species that could thrive anywhere. Admiral Jor, present for the reclassification ceremony, found himself speaking to Lisa, the human diplomat he'd met during first contact. "I've been wondering," he said, "if you could change Earth's conditions, make it less dangerous, would humanity have chosen to do so?" Lisa smiled. "We did change it, Admiral. We repaired much of the damage our industrial development caused. But make it safe. No, Earth's dangers made us who we are. And who are you? He asked, genuinely curious after a year of increasing contact between their peoples. We're the species that survived being a joke, she said, looking out at the stars, and became the punchline that changed the galaxy. The joke had been calling Earth a death world, a place too hostile for intelligent life to thrive. The punchline was that humanity not only survived but transformed the very meaning of survival itself. They became not just defenders of their own existence, but protectors of a galactic peace they had never known on their own world. And somewhere in the cosmos, the universe itself might have been laughing.